Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Drive Time, brought to you by Driveaway. My guest today, Rob Peck. Rob, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Rob, you oversee our drivers on demand piece of the business, if you will. So, for those of our folks who don't understand or don't know what drivers on demand is, why don't you give us a little quick overview of what your piece of the business does?
So, drivers on demand, it's pretty simple. We provide a driver to move a vehicle from point A to point B. Doesn't really get any simpler than that.
So how does that differ from, say, what we typically do on the vehicle transport side of the business, where we're working with, fleet management companies or large corporate organizations that have fleets of vehicles? Yours is more, let's say, individual. Is that an accurate way to say it?
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of that goes into that fleet side moves where drivers on demand is pretty simple. They don't need all of that extra stuff. It's just picking up a vehicle at a dealership, taking it to another dealership, and then bringing that car back. So there isn't all that extra electronic paperwork stuff going on. It's just delivering a vehicle.
So to your point, a lot of your customers, while on the typical auto drive away side, might be corporate entities or fleet management companies. You're primarily dealing with car dealers. Is that correct?
Yeah, car dealerships, vehicle upfitters, auctions, even commercial fleet dealerships as well.
And so those customers, how are you typically, coming into contact with them? Are these ongoing relationships? Are how does that business like continue to evolve, I guess?
There's a lot of ongoing business relationships. There'll be times where we'll pick up or deliver to a non-customer, and they'll see either our chase vehicle or if our driver happens to be wearing a auto driveway drivers on demand hat or shirt, they'll start asking questions of what it is that you do. We let them know, and then they seem to be interested, and then usually I get a phone call.
Right, right. So, what geographies are we typically serving through drivers on demand?
Our main market is here in Northeast Ohio, where it originated, but we do operate some drivers in our satellite offices in Cincinnati and Louisville.
Right, and so we have the capability, really, in that entire region, I guess, to move vehicles from point A to point B safely. And again, to your point, they're kind of, I don't want to say one-offs, but they're more singular moves. But tell me a little bit about, I guess, maybe the advantages that a driver's on demand would offer versus the way maybe typically a car dealership or an upfitter would choose to move vehicles.
Yeah, so a dealership or an upfitter typically would have a driver roster that they would have to maintain, which takes a lot of work. If they use our service, they don't have to have a driver roster. They don't have to hire. They don't have to manage these people. They just have to call us to schedule the move, and we handle the dispatching, the scheduling from point A to point B.
So to that point, no pun intended, the maybe some of the challenges that, let's just drill into car dealerships, I guess, because that's probably the most typical customer. But so typically they may have, to your point, a roster of drivers or folks who work in the dealership, right? Who are then tapped to, hey, we need a dealer trade, we need a car moved from one dealership to another, et cetera, et cetera. And then they'll pull somebody out of some other area of the business, or they might have people who are just kind of waiting, right, for those moves to come along. And it seems like there's a lot of inefficiency there, right? Is that something that we, through drivers on demand can kind of counteract for them?
Yeah, so from my visits to dealerships, I've noticed that there will be drivers kind of sitting around the showroom. Obviously, there's no moves going on. Where if a dealership uses us and it takes 4 hours to move that vehicle, then they don't have another driver sitting there for unproductive payroll for the rest of the day. So my driver comes in, spends the 4 hours making that move, and then they go home for the day. But if it's their employee, they may be sitting around until 5 o'clock with no other moves to be done.
Right.
That's
And the kind of unpredictability of that business, right, lends itself to they don't know when those moves are going to happen. And so they need to cover themselves by having, to your point, maybe somebody sitting, really not doing anything, but still, they're having to pay that person. And to your point, they have to manage those people and make sure that they show up. And so we take all of that like off their plate, right? So it's really the benefit is really what the time they get back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if they don't have to maintain a driver roster, if they don't have to worry about planning and scheduling a trip, that's more time that they can actually get with their customers out on their lots and make a sale. We take care of all that stuff for them so they can continue to sell cars.
And I think that some of maybe you can speak to a little bit of what I would call those kind of hidden costs, right? That maybe car dealerships wouldn't think of in addition to just paying their drivers, right? And then paying them maybe when they're not even working. Are there other, what I would call hidden costs that come into play that drivers on demand can, provide a benefit towards?
Sure, if they use us, we completely eliminate their insurance coverage risk
Mm.
because while we're in maintaining the vehicle in transit, if anything happens, we take care of it. Anything related to HR, hiring, workers' comp reviews, we take care of all of that. It actually, on the back end of that, there's a lot of work that goes into that. We handle all that administrative stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think when you start to unravel a little bit, it's not just about having one or two or three drivers sitting around. To your point, it's whoever's managing them, it's whoever's managing the logistics of the move, right? It's all of those incremental, work challenges that are placed upon that working with drivers on demand really kind of helps eliminate, right? I mean, so there really is a lot more benefit than just moving the car from point A to point B.
Correct.
And what about, so in addition to say, maybe what are some of the other use cases, right? In addition to, what we call dealer trades, where customer comes in, buys a car, but the car that they want is actually another dealer, and, therefore somebody has to bring the cars back and forth. Are there other uses that dealers use, could use a demand service for? I'm thinking maybe about service and things like that.
Yeah, there's times where we'll go and pick up service vehicles, take out a loaner to a car that a customer needs to have brought in for service. One of the other big things that dealerships use us for when they need to either repave or restripe their lot, they'll usually get 5 or 10 drivers to take 100 cars over to a satellite lot, and then when they finish getting the lot paved, we go move them back. So that's another big one that they just can't handle with their own driver roster.
Right, right. That's an interesting one. I've never even really thought of that. There's some heavy lifting when you just think about we need to move all these cars. That takes time and manpower. Do you find that when you get into the service, what I would call kind of concierge service with dealers, people wanting to bring their cars in for service, do you find that more dealers are getting into that as an added benefit? Meaning, okay, I need to have a recall done, or it's time for my 30,000 mile service. Are more dealers starting to explore, hey, you know what, we'll go get your car at your house, bring it back, service it, and then bring it back to you? Is that something that more dealers are getting into as an added benefit?
I've seen some upward trend in that, and by having our driver do it, they don't have to send either a porter or even a salesperson to make that happen. They can continue to do the work that they need to do by hiring our drivers to make that happen for them.
Yeah, I think, and so I'm sure because there's so many different use cases, you and your team are involved in a bunch of different, types of moves, not just the ones we've talked about. But I was wondering if you could share. There's an interesting situation I know you and your team had last year in Cincinnati with the tennis tournament. I'd love to hear a little bit about how that project came to be.
Yeah, so we were contracted by a third party to move a bunch of Cadillacs for the Tennis Pro tournament that's down in Cincinnati every year. So it was 212 Cadillacs going from a Cadillac dealer. We were staging some at the airport, and then the rest of them we were staging at the tennis center. So I took a team of 17 drivers from here in Northeast Ohio, and then I utilized the 6 drivers that I had down in the Cincinnati market. And over a day and a half, we moved 212 Cadillacs.
Holy cow! Right, so that's a massive undertaking. well done, and certainly kind of just a cool, use case, I guess, for these cars that were probably, I'm assuming, then being driven by, tennis players and people affiliated with the tournament. So kind of a cool interaction that Auto Driveaway had as part of that.
Yeah, those are neat events to do.
So, if you were to speak to maybe a general manager or a decision maker at a dealership, a CFO, a lot of times is making these decisions. What would your pitch be as to how to maybe get them to think about it differently? I think in this industry, in the car dealership world, my belief is that they do things the way they've always done them, and I think all of us are pretty comfortable doing what we've done before because we think it works well. What would you say to them in terms of maybe there's a different way to move these vehicles?
Yeah, I would say that Drivers on Demand is here to make their life easier. Why not give us a chance at handling all the details with the vehicle moves, which allows them to do what they should be doing is selling vehicles. It reduces their overall workload, their planning, their costs. There's a whole lot of wins on that by contracting us to make their moves for them.
Yeah, no, I think to your point, I think it's about time and manpower and resources that are very very valuable to your point where they could be utilizing those in different ways to help them drive growth within their own business. So, Rob, I think your area of the business is so interesting, and so there's so much opportunity for other use cases. I see it's an area that is really set for growth in the coming years. Um, Pivoting a little bit maybe to more your personal side. What kind of things do you like to do outside of work?
I do like to golf. I don't know what my handicap is, but I'm a decent golfer. But I'm obsessed with lawns and my lawn in particular. So
Really?
yes, I everybody mows their grass quite a bit on my street. So I had to up my game a little bit, and I got a lawn striping kit. So now my lawn looks like a major league ballpark or even a golf course with the stripes.
Really? Wow. I think we need to get some photos of that. We'll include them with this post. But my lawn, we could use some help. You drive your thing, maybe Drivers on Demand could bring your lawn device, all the way to Chicago. I think that might be a good use case. So, and do people appreciate it? Are you giving kudos for your
Oh yeah,
your
when I watch people as I sit on the porch and they drive by or walk by, they notice.
nice, nice. I think maybe there's a little side hustle for you there.
Could be.
Well, Rob, thanks for joining me. I think, like I said, I think this Drivers on Demand is such an interesting piece of our business, and I think an area where there's so much opportunity for growth. I look forward to seeing that growth in the coming years, and appreciate what you and your team do currently, in the Ohio, and Midwest area, but hopefully soon, across the country, and being able to help out different customers all over the place. So, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.